I think the ferry took a wrong turn.
Yeah, that's for a rock and roll band.
Oh, and here it was supposed to be fixed until they sent, you know,
Set
just
it out
at
there
least
where
make it through
We were supposed to make
tonight
it
and
through
zoning.
this week, so we'll see.
I have the real stuff here.
Where is the buildings and grounds?
He's already dealt with a Coke machine on the fritz. And poor Pat. Pat, did you have to switch to Pepsi or?
I don't drink anything.
he refused to even switch to Pepsi.
See, I won't switch to Pepsi either.
4 of them.
I'd rather go without.
Scares me.
This doesn't have to be plugged in anywhere, does it? Okay.
What time you got?
6:59.
6:59?
Oh.
Have we hit 7 yet?
No.
Your pot never boils.
I know. I should stop.
Yes.
All right.
It is officially 7 o'clock. We'll call the meeting to order, and Megan will proceed with roll call.
Mr. Bonfiglio. Mr. Piaski. Mr. Tim.
Here.
Mr. Kapp.
Here.
Mr. Eckstein.
Here.
Mr. Weddy.
Here.
Mrs. Collada.
Here?
Mr. King.
Here.
Mr. Peterman.
Here.
Mr. Lauer.
Here.
Mr. Kirschner.
Here.
All right, we'll stand for silent prayer and then remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
I so move.
Motion by Supervisor Weddy, second by Supervisor Kapp. Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, we need an approval of the minutes of the January 29th, 2019 monthly meeting.
So moved.
Motion by Supervisor Kapp, second by Supervisor Eckstein. Any questions or comments concerning the minutes?
I've done all my stuff tonight.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Public comments? No one has registered for that, so we will go on to unfinished business. And since it's supposed to snow tomorrow, we'll only do 2 of the reports.
Do you want to table mine again? Or?
No, we'll do them all. Joking. Yeah, all right.
Shoot, I like
All
that
right,
idea.
we're gonna start with the county clerk's office annual report.
All right. So I think you've had this in your committee packets for about 4 months now, so I'm sure you all have it read through front to back and it's probably memorized. So I'm not going to read through it here. I will just kind of touch on some highlights. Again, here we are in February. So as you know, the county clerk is a constitutional officer authorized by Wisconsin statutes. 59.23 is essentially the job description for the county clerk. For the statutory duties, but there's also references in other areas of the statutes. We also provide additional services that aren't necessarily dictated by statute. Like you, my position is elected, so I'm currently serving a four-year term that expires in January 2021. My election will coincide with the presidential election. So a list up here of the primary responsibilities of our office. Again, these are kind of listed in the annual report, so I'll kind of go over a few highlights and statistics. Most of the information in the written report is from 2017. Again, this was intended to be given to you last fall. However, it got delayed a bit. So I've got some 2018 figures in here also just for comparison purposes. So back in 2017, odd-numbered years are kind of what we call an off-election year. There's typically only 2 scheduled elections in odd-numbered years. So again, 2017 was kind of a quiet election year. We had a spring primary that was for the State Superintendent of Public Instruction. We had just over 1,000 ballots cast in the county, a very small turnout for that election. And then in April of 17, for the spring election, we had a little bit over 13% voter turnout. Just to give you comparisons, last year in February, the primary election saw a 9.36% turnout, and the April election last year was almost 21%. So being a on-election year or a for-election year, we saw much higher turnout last year. So we're often asked about the cost of elections, so I kind of put together some rough figures here. Again, remembering this was only a 2-election year and a very small turnout election. As you can see here, the primary costs associated with the election are our equipment programming the machines. We do print ballots in-house for some of the ballots that we do need. The other bulk of the cost goes to publishing required election notices. So of that almost $17,000 that we spent on elections, just keep in mind that doesn't include any wages from my staff. It doesn't include any municipal costs, so like poll workers' wages or municipal level balloting and publishing of their notices. And out of that almost $17,000, we were able to recoup $9,800 that we get reimbursed from municipalities for providing election-related services on their behalf. These are just the functions that we do in our office as the clerk to the county board. I think you guys are probably familiar with most of these, serving obviously on the county board and then on various committees. We develop agendas and post those. We take the minutes and publish them and distribute resolutions and ordinances after the meetings, and then notifies any appointees of appointments that are approved. We update the official county directory and then catalog ordinances. I put this table on here just to show you. I thought it was rather interesting just looking at the volume of resolutions that have changed over the last few years. So if you look back to 2016, we were in the 30s for the amount of resolutions that were adopted by the county board and published. Going into 2017 up to 37, and in 2018 we published 57 resolutions, which is much higher than what we had been doing previously. It attributes to longer processing time afterwards, longer minutes, and higher publishing costs. Not that those are bad things, it's just something that goes into it budgeting-wise, but just keep in mind, I do think that a lot of this is, with our change in leadership, we're also looking at policy making and being a little more proactive with things, so we've seen a lot of resolutions coming through urging state legislature to take action on things that are affecting our county government. In June of 2017, our office took over preparing a few additional agendas and minutes for 3 additional committees. 2013 Wisconsin Act 373 dictates that the county clerk is the clerk not just to the county board, but to all of the board's committees, special and standing committee meetings. So given our current staffing, we obviously can't physically manage all of the committees that you guys have, but we took on these 3 additional ones: the Executive Committee, Personnel and Buildings and Grounds. With the preparation and transition to County Administrator, we took those over from Executive Assistant Michelle Olson, who used to be preparing those. Again, just to give you an idea of the work that increased for our office, in 2015, 2016, we were doing an average of 12 or 13 agendas and minutes or meetings per year. In 2017, we did 32, and in 2018, we prepared 40 meeting agendas and minutes. So up here are the list of financial functions that are in my office. Again, this is going back to 2017. So in 2017, we processed 5,927 financial checks. We usually do around an average of 6,000 checks in a year. We currently cut those on a weekly basis, so that amounts to 114 checks weekly that my deputy typically processes. We still prepare the 1099 forms. We still maintain the vendor database. We keep records and reconcile all the financial records. So again, the list of here is duties that were in my office in 2017. As you remember, in January of last year, 2018, about a year ago, a resolution was passed to move financial functions from my office to administration. The overall effect on my office has been very, very minimal as far as that goes. We're still processing the weekly checks. We're still maintaining the vendor database. We're still processing 1099 forms from my office. The biggest change that we've seen is that the compiled budget and published budget documents, the budget is now formally prepared and presented by Mr. Civic with the administration form of government. So that's the biggest change that we've seen regarding financial functions. Just a couple graphs to show you some licensing trends that we've seen in our office. So we issue marriage licenses. Those have kind of been on a slow, steady decline for the last handful of years. It's not necessarily a trend we're seeing statewide, but I think it has to do with our rather aging and somewhat stagnant population. We're not seeing a whole lot of growth there. Dog licenses have also been on the downward trend since about 2015. In 2017, when we made it official that we were a posting county and didn't need to publish, we did switch. We used to publish a notice in the Argus each year about requiring dog licenses. Instead of that being published in the Argus, now it is just posted. But you can see the decline in the number of licenses issued did start prior to that. So it's been on the decline for a few years. Huge drop in temporary license plates that we issue in our office. So in the second half of 2016, the DMV in Wautoma actually started issuing temporary plates. Prior to that, they didn't offer that service there. So this is definitely a service we're going to be evaluating this year and determining whether or not it's something that we should continue with or if it's something we need to discontinue. In 2017, it only brought in $335 of revenue. We don't spend a ton of staff time on it, but in 2019, they're looking at switching this over to an electronic process, which would require some additional training. So we'll have to evaluate whether or not that's something we should continue with. Timber cutting notices are filed in our office. These are pretty steady. There was a little bit of an uptick in these in 2017 after the windstorms. We had a lot of people doing storm cleanup, having to file cutting notices. So that was the reason for the increase there in 2017. And then just to highlight some of the major changes over the last couple years in our office. In relation to being clerk to the county board, again, we added in 3 additional committees for agendas and minutes prep work in June of 2017. Relating to budget and finance, in 2017, we completely changed our process for how we do accounts payable and check issuance. We actually used to cut checks twice a month and then manuals on a weekly basis as needed. We changed the process and went to issuing checks on a weekly basis. Everything is now all scanned into our system, so everything is easily accessible, and we have some of the departments entering their information in there for us as well. And then again, the other big change was the resolution passed in January of 2018, formally moving finance to administration. But again, we still have a very active role in financial functions for the county, and not a whole lot of day-to-day duties have changed as far as that goes. Some other big changes election-wise over the last couple years. In 2017, we went through and we updated our municipal memos of understanding that we have. We used to calculate our time that we spent for each municipality when it came to providing certain election services. We simplified the fee structure so that administratively it's a lot easier, and budgeting-wise, municipalities are able to budget for that appropriately. In 2018, we converted the city of Wautoma and town of Marion to the same voting machine vendor as the rest of the county. Previously, they had a different voting machine vendor, which made it difficult as far as getting assistance for them in maintaining their machines and having help on election day because they were the only 2 people in the county. So this way they are all on Command Central now. We have Command Central in the area on election day so that they're close proximity-wise in case there's any issues. They're able to help them with that. They're also a little bit more up-to-date machines, so we're all on the same now. We went through and we consolidated some election notices for municipalities recently. The reason we did that, and it's a municipal responsibility and a municipal cost, but what we were seeing, either sometimes they weren't getting published like they needed to, they weren't getting published properly or on time. they were kind of scared all about the newspaper, and so this way we put everything all together in one. It's reducing the cost for the municipalities and putting it all in one spot for all the voters to find. So we'll probably look to continue doing some of that with other election notices in the future too. We added a public access computer in our office for online voter registration. The state implemented OVR, I believe it was in the beginning of 2017, and in 2018 I was able to get our IT department to get a computer in our office so that when people stop in and are looking to register to vote, it's not something that we actually do at the county level, but the state does have an online system for it, so we're able to get them online and help them out with that rather than having to send them away to go to their municipal clerk for registering to vote. And then the last thing election-wise that we did was we implemented voluntary post-election audits. This is something that's currently being recommended by the state, though it's not required at this time. There's been a huge push from the public to ensure that elections are being administered properly and that votes are being counted and machines are tabulating properly. So this is something that's kind of easy for us to do to show that the machines are working the way they're intended to and that votes are being counted properly. Looking ahead to 2019, I realize we are now a couple months into 2019. Some changes coming ahead for us this year, which we actually already started beginning of 2019, is passport issuance. As you know, our office was taking that over from the clerk of court's office. They ended that service December of 2018. We took over January 1st of this year. We are not currently offering passport photos, but it's a service that we will probably be evaluating the later half of this year to see if it's something that would benefit our residents and if it's something that we need to pursue. I'd like to look into creating a department Facebook page, trying to look at some type of social media outlet to notify the public, to reach them for board meetings, election information reminders, and just some general county info there. Potentially looking into digital records retention for board materials. Right now we have some things that are in a digital format. Most things are in paper format, sitting on shelves. I'd like to get those, if we can, into a digital format, preferably something that's in a searchable format for when we're doing research. We'd like to offer more election trainings for our municipal clerks and their election workers. This past fall we offered one. We had about 80 to 90 municipal clerks and election inspectors attend. It was very well received. So we'd like to offer that at least on an annual basis for our municipalities. And then finally, with it being what they consider an off-election year, I'm looking at attending some additional trainings this year. Election-wise, I'm joining the Election Center so that I can benefit from some of those trainings this summer. And then I'm also currently part of the Leadership Academy, is the Wisconsin Local Government Leadership Academy. That's an 8-month commitment that goes through August of this year. So that is all I have, unless you have any questions for me.
I would like to thank you for all the things you're bringing things back into the clerk's office that were taken out of there, and I appreciate that, and I appreciate the friendly, upbeat atmosphere of your office when people come in, and I think that's terrific. You do a great job.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank her for all the candy.
That's just for you. We haven't found any diet candy yet.
A lot of it.
He usually gets there before you, so.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much, Megan. All right, next we have District Attorney's Office Annual Report. Anderson.
Good evening.
Good evening.
All right. So my name's Steve Anderson. I'm the district attorney here in Washera County. Just some basic office organizational chart. Here's the chart. Pretty small staff. We share our office space with Ruth and her staff as well. But overall, we have a victim coordinator, some paralegals. Investigator has now moved full-time to the DA's office. It used to be a split position with Human Services. Still does work for Human Services, but overall is located in the DA's office and is now funded in the DA's office budget. The main duties of the DA's office is essentially prosecuting all the criminal and ordinance violations, as well as some other administrative type violations, DNR, Department of Agriculture, Trade and Consumer Protection type violations. Also providing legal advice to all law enforcement agencies, among others working with departments within the county. It's been a busy year. 2018 was busy. We're continuing to see a large caseload each year for our small office. Last year saw the most felony cases ever filed in Waushara County, 276. As I'll get into just a little bit, there was significant increase in methamphetamine and cocaine, as well as seeing a large increase in impaired driving offenses related to drugs or prescription medications. Total criminal cases filed over the last 20 years has been relatively constant. It has been increasing more recently beyond what was there, but overall it's relatively flat for total cases. This is just a line from the previous data. The big increase that we're seeing is with felonies, felony files, and that's the large difference with the workload. Felony cases generally require more time and attention than lower level cases, and as you can see, it's more than doubled from the early 2000s and increasing at a relatively steady rate over the past decade or 2 decades. One of the big increases most recently has been methamphetamine. There's been a massive increase in our community recently. 2013 and 2014 there were no methamphetamine cases. Last year there were 39. That includes possessions, deliveries, all the variety, but it's pretty staggering the increase that we've seen with methamphetamine, and they're in larger and larger quantities that we're seeing. This was from a drug bust involving over 111 grams of methamphetamine, which is a pretty staggering amount for our area. Most recently also cocaine took a huge jump in 2018. We really haven't seen a lot of cocaine since I've been here, except there was I guess a blip in 2015, but last year was pretty significant, and we're starting to see it more and more regularly, which is problematic. This is the chart. And we're seeing them in large amounts. This was a investigation by the Sheriff's Department that ultimately netted 76 grams of cocaine from a house and somebody that had been dealing it pretty regularly in the community. Marijuana cases are continuing to increase as well in large numbers. This includes possessions, deliveries, manufacturing, all the whole gamut, but again, that's also steadily rising, and we're seeing large numbers of large quantities, I should say, of marijuana, more so than in the recent past. The case on the left involved over 6.5 pounds of marijuana. The case on the right involved over 7 pounds of marijuana at residences that had been essentially packaged and ready potentially for distribution. Impaired driving offenses are rising and at very high numbers, and these totals could be due to alcohol or drugs or both, and it continues to be a significant part of our workload. These numbers include OWI offenses from the civil first offense up till 10 OWI 10 plus. And one trend that we're seeing, and these numbers don't really show the whole story, is drug impaired driving offenses. We're seeing more and more impaired driving offenses with restricted controlled substances like marijuana, cocaine, methamphetamine, heroin, as well as prescription medications. These numbers don't really give the whole story justice in that the majority of the OWI offenses resolved prior to the blood results coming back, either by plea, generally by plea deal. So these numbers, I would imagine, would be much higher if we had the numbers from all the test results after they've come back. I would estimate 30 to 40% of all of our OWIs are now related to some drug or another, as opposed to alcohol, which had historically been the driving force. And finally, I just want to touch on, I've talked a little bit about the workload for the county. Wanted to continue my request for any assistance from the county. The DA and any ADA positions are funded by the state. Waushara County has 1 ADA and 1 DA, 2 total prosecutors. However, by the Department of Administration's analysis, our office has a 3.3 prosecutor workload for the most recent cycle, and it's increased steadily over the past decade or so, and the state has not kept up with the workload increase. So I had previously asked in my budget request, and I just asked the county to consider supporting an additional ADA, Assistant District Attorney position, at least until the state's able to get its act together, and fund additional prosecutorial positions. I'm hopeful that at some point the state will fund an additional position, and they have included it at times in the budgets, but it has often been taken out, and it's not guaranteed. So it's just kind of my pitch. Any questions does anyone has?
Steve, on that last screen,
Yep.
that 3.3 caseload, so does that represent pretty much at any given time you're working on 3 1/3 cases?
No, that's how many prosecutors, based on the Department of Administration's
okay.
analysis, based on types of cases, number of cases,
Okay.
how many prosecutors are necessary for the work in this office.
Okay.
Any other questions? Oh, sorry.
And your ADA is full-time?
It is full-time from the state. Yeah, that changed over in 2013 or 2014. It had historically been a half-time position and then moved to full, I think, in late 2013. If I recall correctly. Do you recall, Ruth? It was right when I started, 2013, yeah. Switched over.
So we switched it originally, the county funded half and the state funded half. We were half-time until 2013. We were having trouble recruiting. At that time, you agreed to pay for an additional half so that we could have a full-time position. And then after we had done that, probably about 6 months into that, then the state did add it to their budget. So now it is state funded.
It seems like every meeting we go to with WCA or Mr. Civic and I were just at the WCA legislative exchange, and they all understand that the departments are woefully understaffed, and it's just getting it through the budget. I mean, they all talk about it, but I don't see anything being done about it. Do you have anything to add?
We will keep nagging them until they beg us to leave them alone.
Yeah, if only nagging worked.
Yeah.
We know you need the position.
Yep.
We do. And thank you for
Yep.
all you do. I know you're probably not as cheerful as Megan is in your
Yeah,
office,
I didn't have,
but
and
I
I was only bumped to 2 meetings, so I can't brag as much as her. I was supposed to be last month, so.
How many dogs did you prosecute?
As criminals? None, no. Oh, we had 1 dog napping case, though, where, that's a fun charge. So, thank you.
Everybody knows dogs are nicer than people, so they don't have to be charged. Thank you very much. All right, next we have Parks and Solid Waste Department Annual Report. Scott, you've been bumped a few times too. Well, we're ready for your report now.
Well, thanks for the opportunity. Like you said, I've been bumped to 2 or 3 times. So I like to start with personnel first because I feel like our employees are our greatest asset. If we start on the left, the parks foreman position is occupied by Dennis Urban, been with Waushara County for 28 years, been foreman for over 14. He's the rock, and he's the go-to guy for anything that has to do with parks. Big change in part-time park tech. Long-time employee Terry Purvis retired, and 9 months ago we hired a gentleman by the name of Roger Bortman, recent retiree from a school district down in the southern part of the state. Brings with him a whole scope of talents as far as buildings and grounds. Fits in great. Summer help. Each year we hire 3 college kids, and they're the ones that you see mowing grass, painting, cleaning restrooms, that sort of thing. The Parks and Solid Waste Secretary half-time is Lori Romer. She's the one that anybody that comes into our office or calls, she's the face of Waushara County Parks, and she does a great job. Solid Waste Foreman has been occupied by Roger Barr for the last 29 years. He recently retired, and we hired a individual by the name of Jacob Chapa, a young man that has a great upside. He has a background in the waste industry, and also is a Afghanistan. He did a tour in Afghanistan recently, so he's got a little bit of military background. Solid Waste Tech is a position that is not filled at this time. We're looking at this spring possibly. Solid Waste Attendants, we've got 19 regular attendants. They're the guys that are there on Wednesdays and Saturdays, rain or shine, dealing with the public. We also have about 6 that we keep on the payroll as subs and use them as needed. So this slide outlines what we do. The last one is who we are. This is what we do. We've got 12 parks, 620 acres roughly, range from 1 acre Curtis Lake County Park to 380 acre Mount Morris Hills County Park. We also maintain the old Chicago Northwestern rail right away, the Bannerman Trail. It's 7 miles from Red Granite to the county line near Nashcoro. It was bought with snowmobile money and is still a snowmobile trail. In the winter, summer use is hiking and bicycling. We also maintain the fairgrounds, develop and maintain for 11 months of the year. The month of August is a lease situation with the County Fair Association. We work with them on development projects, etc., for the good of both the county and the Fair Association. Under advertising and promotion, we maintain the rec map. I'm sure everybody's seen that, and then numerous brochures in our office. The most recent is the Hike, Bike, and Paddle and the Walk Waushara, the booklet that we did with we worked on with the health department and the Ice Age Trail. We also construct and maintain 10 Welcome to Waushara County billboards that are at state highway crossings at the county lines. We attend the Milwaukee Sports Show each year in March. Everett's our go-to guy there. If I'm sure he's still looking for volunteers if anybody wants. See him after the meeting. Snowmobile program. We act as a liaison between the 11 snowmobile clubs in the county and the state to maintain 289 miles of state-funded snowmobile trail. On the solid waste side, we maintain, develop and maintain 9 solid waste collection sites. At those sites, we have paper and container recycle programs, deal with cardboard, newsprint, fine paper. On the container side, it's glass, tin, aluminum, and plastic. Each year, we do roughly 1,100 tons of recycled materials from those sites. We have, at those 9 sites, we've got 17 compactors that we have to keep running. We also deal with what we call special waste at our office and collection sites. That includes antifreeze, oil filters, and electronics. We are also still involved in the household hazardous waste disposal program with Waupaca County. So each year when I do this, I try to highlight one portion of what we do. We get our fingers into so many different things. And this year I'm going to talk a little bit about electronics recycling. To start out, in 2009, Wisconsin instituted this Act 50, which started the bulk of the electronics recycling in the state of Wisconsin. The two main things it did was it required manufacturers to recycle 80% of what they sell in this state, and they also banned a number of different items from Wisconsin landfills. Included our televisions, computers, monitors, printers, DVD players, a whole list of different things. So when that law came down, the Public Works Committee talked about it a bit and decided that we couldn't just turn people away at our collection sites with these items. We had to provide them with a legal, moral, ecological way to deal with these items. This is a map showing the registered, certified Wisconsin electronics collection sites. And you notice that in Waupaca County, the one at our shop is the only one. Waupaca County also only one. There's areas in this state, like Marquette County, for instance, that have no legal way to dispose or recycle electronics. So I think that's pretty important to provide that for our residents. It's not exactly a state mandate, but it's real close. You almost have to do something. So these are statewide totals for various items that are required to be recycled. And you can see that they call it the electronics recycling law, but it might as well just be the television recycling law, because that's the bulk of what's taken. This really mirrors what we take in also. 75% of everything that we take in is televisions. So our process starts at our shop on Town Line Road, Monday through Thursday, 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. Person that has a microwave, TV, whatever, will come in, deal with the user fees, get a receipt from Lori. We'll run them into the back shop, into the cold storage, unload with county personnel. This little table here is a godsend. It's a hydraulic lift table, and it's a real back saver. It's something that without that we probably couldn't even run this program. That $300 item is essential. So then the electronics get sorted in the shop, palletized, shrink wrapped. And then about once a week, we haul them out and tally, keep records. This is a pallet load of CPUs, computers. This is about the only thing that we get any kind of return on. We get like 20 cents a pound for these. Everything else is a net negative. So then we load them into a semi-trailer that the Parks Department, Waupaca County owns. We early on found that we needed space, and the space had to be, by law, had to be covered. It had to be basically indoor, and we're short of space in our shop. So we ended up getting a trailer for storage, but also a roadworthy trailer so that we could make 4 to 5 trips to the recycler each year. So when the truck is full, we contract with the Waupaca County Highway Department. They haul it, and they haul it to, at least at this time, they haul it to Dynamic Recycling in La Crosse, actually on Alaska. We've been dealing with our Highway Department and Dynamic for a number of years, and we've been very happy with each. So each year we evaluate our user fees, okay? And we try to at least break even on every item. The big items obviously are large TVs, anything over 32-inch measured diagonally is $20. Anything under 32 and down is $10. Like I said, 75% of what we take in are TVs. Monitors, $10, and on. So basically, since 2011, we've been sending 4 to 6 loads, semi-loads of recycled electronics to a recycler each year. Average is about 38 tons a year. Of that 38 tons, like I said, 75% is TVs. In the last 8 years, we recycled over 6,000 TVs. So problems probably should be challenges instead of problems, but the biggest problem I see with the state program is somehow, even though the manufacturers are involved, somehow we still have to charge a $20 bill to recycle a large TV in Waushara County. It'd be nice if somehow we could get that reduced so we have less TVs in the ditches. The other major problem that we have is ours, and that's having enough space in our shop to run the program. Things, especially in the summertime, get very tight. It'd be nice to have a little more space. And the third is I do have some concerns about the possibility of workers' comp claims handling these large items on a daily basis. Knock on wood, we've only had one claim in the last 11 years. So at that, I guess I'll open it up for questions about this program or the parks, the general solid waste, whatever.
Take tires also, right?
We do take tires at our collection sites, and we do have a user fee for those too. Yeah, and there's other things. I mean, we take used motor oil and whatnot. You had something? No.
Is the $20 you charge for the fee for the TV or whatever, is that for administrative fees or is that the TV?
No, that's our charges from the recycler plus our hauling charge. Costs roughly $25 per pallet to get it there. So, no, we're just trying to break even on the program. Anybody else? All right, thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. I think we all agree we have some beautiful parks in this county, so thank you for that, Scott.
I was going to tell Scott, I rode 300 miles on the Waushara County trails on a snowmobile this weekend, and they're awesome. Yeah, good job grooming though, Scott. Appreciate it.
Okay.
All right, next we'll go to Administration Department Annual Report. Administrator Robert J. Civic.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening.
Normally I give 2 reports a year to you. One is really heavy on numbers, and we all know what that is. That's the annual budget report in the fall. So we had a good time last year looking at budget numbers and demographic numbers, and I know a lot of these annual reports you get from departments is heavy on numbers, but I'm more of a words guy than I'm a numbers guy. So I thought that what I would do for the annual report is to kind of give you an update. I'm coming up on my 2-year anniversary here, to give you an update on what we've done and where we're going and what direction that I'm trying to take the county, and obviously in partnership with you and the employees, to do a better job for the people of Waushara County. So what I've done is I've broken this down into some broad initiatives or goals that we've been trying to undertake and that we will continue to undertake. The first is it involves the administration's management philosophy, practices, and goals. So let's get into that. Oh, wait a minute. There we go. I wasn't very good at AV in high school. The most important thing that I've tried to change here is we have clear and consistent organizational structure and chain of command. You converted to from the administrative coordinator to the administrator form of government in late 2016. That actually took effect when I came on board in May of 2017. And I will tell you that the trend in Wisconsin and is for counties to transition from the admin coordinator to the administrative form of government. In fact, when Mrs. Collada and I were in Madison last Friday, we were at the WCA offices for a meeting. It had nothing to do with the WCA, but I know that John Hockemer is the kind of the roving trainer for county government. He asked Mrs. Collada to speak at another county that's considering making that transition. And the reason why that trend is continuing is because under the admin coordinator form of government, basically you folks, you 11, and in some counties it's many more, manage the county on a day-to-day basis. That doesn't mean you're making phone calls or things like that, but overall, every county board in the state has policy-making authority and obviously controls the public purse. But for management, often it creates problems because I can tell you to have 11 different people try to run the place. You all have vastly different opinions on things, and what that does is it creates an uncertainty in an organization of this size as to who's giving orders and where that's coming from or how policies are being formulated or being managed. So the biggest thing I wanted to change right off the bat was to clear up who was running the place and how it was being run and delineating responsibility. And we all have to serve somebody, and I think Nobel laureate Bob Dylan said it best in 1979. You may remember that if you listen to The Bug. You can hear this song every once in a while. But as Dylan said, we all have to serve somebody no matter who you are, and particularly here in this county from perhaps the entry-level rank-and-file employee all the way up to myself and to you as well. So to review that, our rank-and-file employees report to and are managed by the department directors. Some of our larger departments, they have a layer of middle management, so rank-and-file folks who report to middle managers. The middle managers report to the directors. The non-elected directors report and are managed by me. The elected directors, they're not necessarily managed, but their continued employment is subject to the electorate. Every 4 years, the voters of Waushara County decide whether or not they're going to keep their job or perhaps they'll give it to somebody else. Same thing holds true for all of you, except you're up every 2 years. You're subject to the authority of the electorate, and I am my continued employment is subject to your authority. So we all have to serve somebody, and all of us together have to serve the laws of the state of Wisconsin, the United States, and whatever decisions courts may pass or write. So no matter, even if we're all in agreement that we want to go one particular way, if the legislature, either of the state of Wisconsin, the United States, or some court tells us we can't do that, we have to obey the law because we believe in the rule of law for obvious reasons. Let's talk about facts and figures. I know I told you we weren't going to get too much into this, but this is all we have for tonight. Our government serves a year-round population of approximately 25,000. In the summer season, as you can see from the traffic, that population ranges anywhere from 50 to 75,000. Particularly on holiday weekends, you'll see a lot of people in the county, and we love those folks, particularly when they spend lots of money. The governing body, that's you, 11 elected supervisors. We have 7 other independent county elected officials. You heard from one of them tonight, the district attorney. We have 4 citizen boards and commissions. We have 18 different departments. We have services that we contract for the University of Wisconsin. Our surveyor is a contract employee. We have a relationship with the building right next door, the county museum. Our annual budget is more than $40 million. And all total, all of our full-time, part-time, and seasonal employees, we're looking at approximately 400 people. So in some ways, in comparison to larger counties, it's a small operation, but certainly in comparison to other organizations you have in Waushara County, it's a rather large organization. My understanding is that Waushara County government is the largest employer in this county. My goal before I leave here is to have the county be the 3rd or 4th largest employer, not because we're looking at cutting positions, but through economic development. The next thing I've tried to implement is frequent, direct, unambiguous, and informative communication. Now, I'm speaking to you supervisors, but there's also people here in the back members of the public or other county employees. As you know, every Sunday night I send you often a very long and very tedious communication, a message. That's something that I don't necessarily want to do, but I think it's important to give you more information than you may want, than less information than you may want. And then it's up to you, whether you not want to rate it, how closely you want to rate it, what you want to go ahead and take from that. But I found that most of the problems in government and in any organization is when people don't communicate. So it's not just the frequency of the communication, it's whether or not you're direct with people. And that requires people having difficult conversations, but those conversations are important because if you don't have those difficult conversations, as I said to you last night, I need to tell you I have to tell you what you need to hear, not necessarily what you want to hear, because then if you gloss over things or problems, people get the wrong impression and those problems continue to fester. So we're getting away from that. It may not make me very popular, but certainly very few people who deal with me walk away from a conversation or communication not understanding where I'm coming from. And this is one of those self-help business management books, Jeffrey Morales, and his advice is don't just tell your team members what you want, but explain to them why. So, when we were all kids and you're 5 years old and you ask your mother, can I have ice cream for dinner? And she says no, and of course you're a kid and you always ask questions. You say why. Mom says, because I said so. And I get it. That's kind of the, mom has the authority. Mom certainly is a lot bigger than you. But in that type of situation, you can't have that for adults. You can't just say because I said so. It's important to explain to people, management and rank and file people, why we're doing things. Because if you leave that vacuum of information as to why we're doing this or why we're doing that, people will fill that in. The rumor mill will fill it in. Well, they're doing it because of this or because he likes that person or he doesn't like that person or whatever it may be. So it is important to explain to people why we're doing things. So we have various forms of communication that we've implemented or that we've increased. One of the things is we have rapid and complete response to citizen inquiries and complaints. And I get quite a few of those. Most of them, well, this time of the year, it's usually about snow plowing, maybe a mailbox or two being taken out. But sometimes it's about other things, why the county is doing this or doing that. And I found out through my career, particularly when dealing with the public, if you have people come in and you sit down with them, and even if you don't give them what they want, and I can tell you a lot of times you can't, they will often walk out of the room or out of the building thinking, okay, I'm not entirely happy, but at least I'm satisfied that somebody listened to me and explained why I can't get what I want. And we need to keep that up, not just for myself, but for all of us in general. We have detailed explanations to employees as to administration management decisions. A good example of that, and I copy you in on some of these communications, but you remember last month we had some difficult weather, and it's been a rougher winter, at least than my first winter here. But to explain to people why we weren't closing the building down when it was sub-zero weather. And that was a problem because Governor Evers declared a state of emergency. He closed down a number of state office buildings. I can tell you that some of our governmental partners in this area closed down operations as well. But the reason why we didn't do it is because it didn't necessarily pose a threat to the employees. It posed a threat to the dining centers, to the elderly who go there, which is why that was closed down. It posed a threat to people who are going to take materials out to the waste site and the people who work out there because they largely work outside, and that was something that was an unnecessary risk. But for the employees, from the pull up to get out of the car, obviously they're going to be bundled up, and to walk in the building, it's a little discomfort, but it wasn't dangerous. So it wasn't, we're not going to follow suit with everybody else because we're mean and rotten and we want to torment our employees. It was because that did not pose a danger. Conversely, when it was a situation where the roads were bad, whether coming into work or perhaps leaving early, we went ahead and we made those accommodations. And we made those accommodations not as a blanket accommodation, because for someone like me who just lives up the hill, I can easily get to and from work. But say for someone who lives in Wapaka or Neshkoro you know, Westfield or wherever they may be coming from, it's a little bit more difficult. So we accommodate those people, not because they're special, not because we like people who live in Nishikoro more than we like people in Watoma, but because the risk to them is greater, and that's how you manage things, and that's how you communicate things. You've already heard about the frequent detailed communications to supervisors, including the weekly message. You know, you can print that out and use it for bird feeders or whatever. But I am committed to giving you information and letting you know what's going on. And also communication to the public through traditional and social media. One of the things that I do, and one of the things that I've encouraged department directors to do, is to maintain a good relationship with Mrs. Kunash over here, who publishes her newspaper, and to supply material for that newspaper as well. People read the Argus, so we want them to know what we're up to. We also are doing things through social media. We do need to increase that, as Mrs. Kapp mentioned during her presentation. And one of the things that we've done that you know about is through Hometown Broadcasting, we are sponsoring, not necessarily sponsoring, we're not paying for it, but we're generating about a 5-minute content for every week for various function of county government, and that we have that booked through the rest of 2019. It's important that people know what we're doing here, because I can tell you, and you know this as well, there are a lot of people out there who don't think we do much around here, or have no idea what we do. And you can attribute that to, well, they're not looking at the county website and reading the agenda for the county board meetings. Well, they don't necessarily have to do that. If they're not going to get the message on their own, I think it's our responsibility to deliver to them, and that's what we do, because they pay for this government. It's important that they know what we're doing. The next thing is rising standards and expectations. It's important that we get better and better at what we're doing, because as you recall from last fall, from the budget presentation, we are facing a demographic time bomb. Our population is largely stagnant. It is getting older. That has many, many effects on what we're doing here. Megan Kapp went ahead and discussed how marriage licenses are down. It's not because people don't like marriages, it's because the population is getting older, and older people tend not to get married as much as people in their 20s or the 30s. That has an effect economically, because if people are not getting married and starting families, they aren't necessarily participating fully in the economy. They may not be building houses. They may not be furnishing houses. They're not buying school clothes for their kids. They're not doing all those things that young families do, and that's one of the repercussions of having a steadily aging population. And when you have less economic activity, you have less of a tax base, and that means less money. And then it's a double whammy, because as you get an older population, the demand for services gets greater as well. So we're getting pulled at both ends. So one of the things that we can do, we can't force another 100,000 people to move to Waushara County and build houses and spend money, but one of the things we can do is we can become more efficient. We can raise standards for the talent, for the employees we have here, and not just the managers, but for everyone. This I'm not just necessarily playing to you because we're in Wisconsin, but I thought that this was a very, very good quote. This is a quote that Vince Lombardi made at his first meeting as Packers head coach in 1959. He said, "Perfection is not attainable, but if we chase perfection, we can catch excellence." We're not going to be perfect. We're going to make mistakes. But what we need to do is to try to do the best we can every single day and to try to improve things. So if 2018 is a successful year, we want 2019 to be better. And I just want to talk a little bit about Lombardi and what he did, because this isn't just empty words. This is reality here. So in 1958, the year before Lombardi came, the Packers' record was 110-1. And despite your disappointment for this year, that was the worst season in Packers history over the 100 years. And hopefully it will always remain the worst season in Packer history. That team stunk. It was terrible. But on that team, they had 5 future NFL Hall of Famers. That doesn't make any sense. How could a team with 5 people starting who would end up in the Hall of Fame be so unbelievably lousy? It was because they weren't managed and they weren't led properly. Lombardi came in there and he demanded excellence from those players through hard work and through a change in attitude. So the first year that Lombardi coached, 59, they were 7-5. Respectable, certainly a vast improvement over 58. And then the next year after that, 1960, they played in the NFL championship, and I don't want to rub salt in anyone's wounds, but they lost that game to my Philadelphia Eagles, and that was the only postseason game Lombardi ever won. And if you think I'm gloating, I will also say that was the last NFL championship the Eagles won until last year. So what happened was Lombardi took that team, he turned it around, and of course we know about all the glory years in the 1960s. And even that loss in 1960, Lombardi learned from that. It wasn't just, oh, we lost, it was terrible. He realized that he was outworked, and he vowed that he would never get outworked again, and he never lost another postseason game again. So that's the kind of thing we can do here, because if you have an attitude that we can only do so much because this is rural Wisconsin, or we don't have the talent we need, we don't get the superstars that they get in Madison or Milwaukee or Chicago, that's nonsense, because Lombardi walked in there and there were 5 players on that team who were playing terribly, but they ended up in the Hall of Fame because he demanded that they raise their standards and their expectations and their performance, and they did so. And that can be done anywhere. So, raising standards and expectations is a two-way street. It's not just, haranguing the rank and file employees and saying, you must do a better job. It's also the management, particularly myself. I have to do a better job. So one of the things that we're doing, or many of the things that we're doing, is first and foremost, we have an engaging and fulfilling work environment. It's not that everybody gets to fool around and do whatever they want here, but they know, through the culture we've created here, that we want them to participate. We want them to play a part in delivering service to the people with Sherritt County. We want them to know that their work is important. We want them to do good work. What we do here, it may sometimes seem like any other job, but it is public service, and there isn't really too much more that's important in this world. We have a collaborative but strong leadership, management and leadership. So the door is open. People can go ahead and weigh in on things, and they can voice their opinion. They can even voice their criticism. But it isn't something that's chaotic where we take a vote for every single decision. Decisions and directions are strong, but we want input before we go that way. And it's also because, going back to what we talked about with dealing with the public or communication, you need to have an avenue for people to participate or at least be heard. And even if their way of doing things isn't the way you go, they feel at least that they got to voice their concerns. And then they're much more likely to buy in whatever direction you're going in. Frequent, direct, unambiguous, and informative communication. We already discussed that. Support of the employees and assumption of responsibility. One of the things that I've really impressed upon people is I want them to understand that if they have a responsibility here, I want them to carry out that responsibility. And I want them to go ahead and be creative in doing that. And if they make a mistake, that's okay. I'll take the heat for that. Because if you don't have that sort of culture and you have managers or rank and file employees who are afraid to do anything because they don't know who they answer to or they don't know when they're going to get called on the carpet, they will cope by doing as little as possible. And we can't afford to do that because we don't have much in the way of resources. We're understaffed. We're underfunded. We've got it. We're fighting this battle. We've got to do the best we can. You heard from the district attorney. He's understaffed as well, and his situation is rather typical around here. Open to new ideas and suggestions. Long-term planning based on critical thinking and analysis. We talked about that at the budget presentation last year, and there's other things that we're doing too. Dave Picard, our new building and ground superintendent, is here. We are going, with Dave here on board, we are going to begin to look at the buildings on this courthouse campus. We're going to look at these buildings, how they're laid out, what the traffic patterns are, what the office space needs are. where the public is coming in, what offices they're visiting, and we're going to try to figure out how can we go ahead and reconfigure things to make it as efficient as possible, not just for the office layout, not just for the space, but also for the physical plant, the heating and cooling system, so that we can go ahead and have cost, whether you want to consider it to be cost effective or you want to consider it to be green, the bottom line is it's going to save money for the public. We're also going to do things as far as making the building more secure for members of the public who come here to conduct business or employees who work here day after day. And that is going to require critical thinking, not necessarily the turf battles over who gets the better office or the window or anything like that. We are going to go ahead and do that with an eye on what is best for our organization and the people of Waushara County. Trust, respect, and appreciation of employees. As I said earlier, I want all of our employees to know, and I mentioned this in my message to you on Sunday night, that when they come here, no matter what they do, it's important work. Whether you're somebody who processes dog licenses or you're a sheriff's deputy who's out there dealing with a violent criminal, everything that we do here is important because everything we do is designed to serve the public. And whether you're a sheriff's deputy or you're a clerical employee, your work is important because you work for the people. And there's no higher calling for people than that. And we want our folks to understand that. We directly address problems in individuals. So if we have a problem employee, we deal with that problem employee. And if it's a situation, we'll deal with it. We won't engage in lazy management where what we do is if we have some employees doing something wrong, we then ban some particular activity for everyone, because all that does is it just means that we don't respect our employees, and it breeds resentment in employees as well. So we're getting away from that. We're concerned for our employees' well-being. Last week, I met with officials from Theta Care and from our insurance consultant and our internal team. We've begun to talk about the state of our employees' health. We've begun our employee wellness, our initiative, our Healthy Employees Initiative. We are looking at changing some of the beverages that we have in vending machines here, which aren't necessarily healthy. Yes, I'm looking at you with the can of Pepsi over there. And perhaps using our fantastic central kitchen and our fantastic staff over there to offer for sale for our employees healthier food options, such as salads or soup, rather than fast food, which is often the only option we have here for the employees. We're looking at offering classes such as yoga and stress reduction, monitoring high blood pressure, seeing what we can do about tackling reversible illnesses such as high blood pressure or type 2 diabetes. That's all designed not just to make the employees feel better, and it depends on how you view it. You can either view it from the standpoint of we're loving and caring for our employees, but also what we deal with a lot of times around here is money. And it's expensive providing health insurance to employees. And if we have healthier employees, it will be less expensive. So it's not just benefiting the people who work here, it's benefiting the people out there paying taxes. And employee recognition and appreciation events. Some of you came to the employee holiday luncheon that we had in December. Sometime this summer, we will be showcasing one of the beautiful parks that we have for our employee family picnic. We let people know in visible ways that we care about what they do, and we do appreciate them being here. And as I said, it's a two-way street for employees as well. We strive for excellence. We no longer hope for mediocrity. There's an old saying, it's close enough for government work. I don't believe in that. I think government employees and government organizations are just as good as the high-dollar tech companies that you always hear about. And I want to touch on that just a little bit more in detail. Supervisor Weddy's there in the back. He was a career educator. And studies have shown, particularly in education, that expectations you have for people, and what I'm referring to as children, people go ahead and meet those expectations. So if you have an inner-city school that's performing poorly, and the attitude of teachers and administrators is, well, these kids don't know a damn thing, and they're going to end up being failures, the best they can hope for is getting French fries at McDonald's. That's what they're going to end up doing. They're going to meet those expectations. Whereas if you have a high-performing school and you have kids there and you say, we expect you to do well academically and we expect you to know your, you pay attention to your studies and become successful in life, that's what they'll do as well. There was a film that came out, I don't know, about 25 years ago about Stand and Deliver. It was called Stand and Deliver. It was about a teacher who taught mathematics in a depressed area of Los Angeles, and these were kids who were barely getting by, barely meaning, you know, 4th and 5th grade mathematical standards, and they were high school kids. And through sheer force of will and through telling these kids they don't have to meet those low expectations society had for them, they not only went ahead and got up to average in mathematical skills, but they had some champion, as they call them, mathletes. That's the sort of thing we want employees to realize here. This defeatist attitude of, well, this is a rural area and we can only do so much, that's nonsense. We can do just as well as anybody in county government, Milwaukee, or the larger counties, or the wealthy suburban counties, or even the private sector. So that's the culture and the attitude that I continuously preach about. We want to improve performance through creativity, training. We're opening resources, as I've said it to you 1,000 times. Training and education is not an expense. It is an investment, and it is a wise investment. It is not wasting money by sending somebody such as Megan Kapp to the Leadership Academy, because the return that the people of Waushara County are going to get from the education and training that Megan receives will be far in excess of, I think we're spending maybe $2,000 on that. We're focusing and supporting the overall county mission. And we don't want employees just to be concerned about themselves and their departments. When I came here, my overall impression of the county government was we had 21 different departments and we had 21 separate kingdoms, and they were often in conflict with each other, particularly at budget time. Now, we've been through 2 budgets, and I can tell you that not everybody's getting what they want, and obviously there are some funding requests that have to be met. We're talking about law enforcement, first responders, our highways, et cetera. But we're collaborative, and we are letting people know that all of us, no matter what you do here, we support what every other employee is doing. We support what every other department is doing, because we're all part of the same team, and that team's mission is to provide the best government possible for the people of Waushara County and make this the best place to live. I've encouraged employees to pursue leadership roles in their professional organizations. I want people to understand. I want employees here to be leaders in their professions, because I want Waushara County to be looked upon as a leader, not as an also-ran. I want employees to also understand that no one's entitled to a job here. They have to meet performance standards and expectations, and that applies to me more than anyone, as you know, because I serve at your pleasure. We never justify things, but we've always done it this way, because the world is changing rapidly, as you know, and we have to change along with it, or we're going to be left in the dust. And the most important thing is we let employees know that the taxpayers, the people who bust their butts every day to earn a living, to pay their taxes, they don't exist to provide all of us with a nice job, but we exist to serve them, and that's what public service is all about. The other thing is we need to have aggressive, effective, and sustained economic development. And that's not just because of we love money, or this is the Chamber of Commerce, or we're a branch of the Chamber of Commerce. It's because government and business have a symbiotic relationship. The fact that the lights are on in this place, and we can pay for the electricity, and we can pay for the building, and most importantly, we can pay for the salaries and the benefits of the people we work here, is because of economic activity out there that is taxed, that provides that revenue for us to do this. So we have to understand that if we don't have a lot of economic activity, or our economy is stagnant, or our economic growth is stagnant, we cannot do a heck of a lot here, because we are only as healthy as the business community is in Waushara County. And this is a quote from Prime Minister David Cameron, when he said the economy is the start and end of everything. And unfortunately, the Prime Minister, that quote, I believe, was made in reference to the British government staying in the European Union. And the British government, as you know, is leaving the European Union. Cameron was in favor of it staying in the EU because of markets and everything else, and we don't need to get into that. But he emphasized the economy is the start and end of everything, and people in Britain didn't understand that, and they made a foolish, short-sighted decision, and because of that, a lot of the things that were being done in London, particularly the high-dollar things like finance, are leaving, and they're going to Stuttgart and other cities in Europe because you have to mind your economy. So what are we doing about economic development? The highlights are Fox Valley Technical College with Thomas Center. That was constructed and opened last year. I can't emphasize enough how important that is to our economy and to the people we serve. This is a poor community. Many people do not have the ability to go ahead and improve their skills, to get the education they need to be able to get better jobs. Because that's located in Watoma, a lot of people in this region can go to school there, can gain skills as welders or commercial drivers or whatever, and earn a better living and better support their families. And yes, I'm not ashamed to say it, provide more in tax dollars to support county government. That has been a real economic engine for this county. It will probably take several years for us to see any discernible results, but those results will come about. The county is very involved in the Fox Valley workforce development. As you know, a lot of employers here are struggling to get qualified employees. Manufacturing here, Mayville Engineering, I'm sure Oshkosh Defense is struggling to get people as well. Fox Valley Workforce Development is a consortium of private and public employers in the Fox Valley trying to improve the skills of our workforce to act as a feeder line to those employers. So those employers can manufacture the products or provide the services that they need to provide, and thus increase the economic activity and, yes, the tax base of communities in the Fox Valley, but also so people can go ahead and participate in that economy, and it can earn more money, and they in turn can live better lives, and yes, they in turn can go ahead and spend more money, and it becomes a revolving circle. And Fox Valley is not just looking at the traditional people, but it is expanding out, and I think it's a great idea to traditionally groups of people who are not participating in the economy. Here in Waushara County, one of the things that Fox Valley is involved in is workforce development for people in our Red Granite Correctional Facility. 95% of the people who go to prison in this country come out again. And if we want them to come out and be productive citizens, we have to give them the skills to do so. Otherwise, they'll be right back into the criminal economy and right back in prison, which is expensive. We're also involved in the North Central Wisconsin International Trade, Business, and Economic Development Council. Somebody really wanted to put together a lot of words when that organization was formed. That's North Central ITBEC. That is a consortium of counties, 12 counties. We're the furthest south, all the way north to Lake Superior. It is mainly geared towards tourism, but that's okay, because tourism is 1/3, or our economy is largely broken up into 3 different components: agriculture, manufacturing, and tourism is important as well. And tourism is probably the easiest thing that we can do as far as expanding economic activity. So we're seeing what our neighbors are doing. We're working in concert with them. And I know Scott talked about the sports show, and Waushara County will have a booth there, but so will ITBEC. In fact, I'll be down there. Not that I don't love Waushara County, but I'm committed to working at the ITBEC booth as I did last year. That's to get people from large cities like Milwaukee and Chicago and even the Twin Cities to come here to Wisconsin to enjoy the great outdoors and to spend money, not just in Waushara County, but the other counties in that consortium. You know all about the Sunridge Markets expansion. A lot of times in economic development, you can't necessarily be Captain Ahab looking for that white whale, that big prize, that Foxconn or that Amazon headquarters situation. A lot of times you look in your backyard. We have a lot of small businesses here that provide jobs. We need to do what we can to let them get bigger so that they can provide more jobs. The planned Waushara County Venture Center. I know, Mr. Bonfiglia, you're growing impatient, but we are working on that with Ms. Peach, and we will be taking action on that as well. Planned improvements, Tri-County Economic Development Corporation, the TRETC. That's been in some turmoil. We are working on getting things straightened out there, and we will tackle those those issues anew. And despite some rumors you may have heard, the three counties, Waushara, Marquette, and Green Lake, we are remaining united in that, because we are all counties that are similar with limited resources, and we know we can do a better job if we are united, and we intend to do so, and we intend to do a better job than has been done before. County and regional tourism. This goes back to ITBEC. It goes to other things as far as I was at the State Fall Tourism Conference. The problem that we have here in the three counties that we have for the Tri-County Economic Development is we have all these great tourism opportunities, our lakes, our snowmobile trails that you heard about, the resorts, all those things, Nordic Mountain, but we don't have a brand identity. If you're somebody who is not in this area, you've heard of the Dells because you know all about the water parks. Yes, you also know about the cheesy wax museums and things like that, but that people do go to see that, and they do go to the Dells and they do spend money. You hear about the North Woods, Minocqua, Lake Superior, the Madeline Island, things like that. You hear about Door County. I can tell you, when I lived in Omaha, Nebraska, there were people who went to Door County and they raved about it. We don't have a brand identity, so we need to develop that as well. And we've been making some initial inroads, not only through ITBEC, but also, and the State Department of Tourism, but also through our Tourism Resource Council, who we will have representatives, as well as the Chamber of Commerce, addressing you on some things next month. So those are things we're tackling as well. Community outreach. We work for the public. The public has to know about us. They have to know what we're up to. We can't just stay in this building and our castle and not talk to folks. Sometimes those conversations are difficult. Sometimes you deal with angry people. Sometimes you deal with people who may be acting out of ignorance. But you have to get out there and you have to meet these folks because they're the ones who are paying the bills. Woody Allen said back in the 70s, 80% of success is just showing up. And I think that that's true. A number of us have been attending events such as at the senior centers or town meetings or village meetings, and we don't walk in the room with great fonts of wisdom telling people what they need to do, what they don't need to do. A lot of times we're just there saying, we're here, we work for you, we want to be your partner, give us a call if you need anything, and people do appreciate that. So what are we doing? Last summer we had our Board of Supervisors tour. We'll do that again this year. We are touring township and village board meetings. That's probably going to take at least 2 years to get through them, and then we'll start all over again. The last one was in Coloma, Mark did a great job of chairing that meeting. Every summer we take an annual tour of our 8 senior dining centers to go ahead and meet the folks that we serve there. You'll hear a little bit about this in a few minutes. County Government Day in April. I'm involved in area service clubs, as are a number of the members of county senior management, because it isn't just about serving the public here. It's also about the activities those service clubs do. Community events. The best thing about community events is going to various villages and their festivals, whether it's the Labor Day Parade in Red Granite or the Freedom Fest here in Watoma, is you can go ahead and have a good time and then pretend that you're actually working. So that's also nice to do. And attendance at various community meetings. So we're doing things like the town board meetings. I know we have the Wilkies are here from the Waushara Watershed Lakes. Everybody has to have like 6 words for these, but we met. The Land Conservation and Zoning Director and I met with them a couple of Saturdays ago. So we are making ourselves available. And as I said to that group, we don't have much in the way of resources, in the way of money we can provide these community groups. But what we do have here is we have talent, and we can help people in what they want to get done. Organizational participation, the Wisconsin Counties Association, the White House Office of Intergovernmental Affairs. I will tell you that the Trump administration has probably reached out more to local government than I've seen in any other administration, and I've worked in local government during the Clinton, Bush, and Obama administration. In fact, today I was on a conference call. Mrs. Collada came in on the tail end of that, and the discussion was about selling agricultural products to the Canadians and the Mexicans. Those are issues that are not just national, international issues, but they affect us right here. We have dairy products. We grow various agricultural products, and we produce more than we need here in the United States, and we make money by selling that overseas. So that was a very good discussion as well. Wisconsin City County Management Association, that's a group that I belong to. That's also a group that sponsors the annual women's conference. In 17 it was in Oshkosh. Last year it was in Madison. I don't know where it's going to be this year. But every year we send about a dozen of our senior female managers and middle managers to that as well. And the reason why we do that is because only an idiot will not take it to make use of half of the workforce. One of the reasons why the United States and Western countries do much better economically than countries that subjugate women is because, you know, you can get into the social aspects of subjugation of women, but the economic aspects, why would you not want women to fully participate in your economy and to offer their talent? So we're not, we want everybody to participate. We want everyone's ideas, and we want to develop all of our talent here. Wisconsin County Executives Association, I was at a meeting at that in conjunction with the WCA Legislative Exchange. And that group is, we're undertaking a more concerted effort to provide programming for county executives and administrators, because the WCMA, the Wisconsin City County Management Association, their educational opportunities are largely geared towards municipalities. So we're trying to offer more to counties and to people who manage counties. Wisconsin County Mutual Loss Prevention Workers' Compensation Committee, I sit on that. That's our liability carrier. So we have a seat at the table when we talk about risk management and workers' comp cases to try to limit the amount of money that our carrier is paying, and thus our taxpayers are paying for those avoidable risk. And part of that you'll see out front with the signs that we have up, and we'll be up all winter reminding people to be safe when they walk on these sidewalks. The Wisconsin Utility Tax Association, last Friday Mrs. Collada and I were down there in Madison, and what we're talking about there is, again, that lobbying, that concerted lobbying effort. This is just one part of it. Steve Anderson's problems is another part of it. But we are haranguing our state elected officials that they need to be more responsive to the people back home, because what they do and what they don't do has a big effect on what kind of service we can provide. And just to be particular, the utilities in the state make payments in lieu of taxes, and a greater and greater share of that has been diverted to state coffers instead of county coffers. And the whole reason why the system was set up was to compensate local governments for the infrastructure that we provide and maintain that enables electric utilities to serve their customers and, yes, to make money. Fox Valley Technical College Advisory Council, I serve on that as well. That's important so that we can maintain a good relationship with Fox Valley Tech, because they train our residents so they can earn more money and live better lives, and yes, I'm not ashamed to say it again, generate more economic activity and a better tax base for us. So the future, it's coming. Control your destiny or someone else will. That's what Jack Welch said when he ran GE. That's when GE was an industrial juggernaut, not so much anymore. I don't know if it's because Jack Welch left or what, but that is true. We have to control things around here. Otherwise, people in Madison will control us, or people in other jurisdictions will control us, so we can't allow that. So goals for improvement for the future: improved employee morale leading to better work performance and reduced turnover. Every time we fill a position, we look to get the best quality talent that we need so we can have people do a better job for the people with Sheriff County. We hire managers with an emphasis on seeking management and leadership ability. It isn't just about somebody's been in the business for so many years. We want to know whether or not they can excel here. Advocacy at the state and federal level, you heard all about that. Greater efficiency in all things and everything we do around here, whether it's turning out the lights at night or whether it's reorganizing this building to make better use of the square footage that we have to heat and cool and maintain. Use of critical analysis in thinking and solving problems. We want to go ahead and basically be creative and think what's the best way to go about tackling this problem, rather than who's going to be happy about this and who's not going to be happy about that. That's not how you solve problems, or at least not how you solve them well. And I'll leave you with this, the last quote: change can be frightening, and the temptation is often to resist it. But change almost always provides opportunities to learn new things, to rethink tired processes, and to improve the way we work. That's Klaus Schwab, who found the World Economic Forum, and that is the way he sees the world, and I agree with him as well. So, does anybody have questions or comments they want to offer? And I know I went on for a while, but unlike these other people who made presentations, I cover the whole thing. They're just covering small parts, so indulge me. Anything?
Questions? I do have one comment. In addressing the tourism, I would like to thank Mary Kunash for the awesome Moshare County Guide that she puts out every year. We take that down to the sports show. Everett has it at the county booth. I think you take some over to ITBEC. It's a fantastic.
And I know you shouldn't ask questions because it raises like 3 or 4 different things in my head. One of the things that we do as far as thinking outside the box. No, we're gonna brag a bit here. The EAA show I think it's in July there in Oshkosh. We have a relationship with the Oshkosh Oshkosh Convention and Visitors Bureau. So that's their deal there. They bring people from all over the world. But we have an arrangement with them where we take those guides and they put those out there in their booth for people who are visiting either from Milwaukee or maybe San Diego or London. I don't care. But we go ahead and we do that because we're banging on doors and we're asking for help. We're not going to be the type of people who think we can go along because we can't. We don't have the resources to do that. And the other thing I wanted to mention as far as tourism goes, and I'll tie this into open and creative thinking. Mrs. Collada and I often spend a lot of time in the car traveling to Madison or wherever else we're going. And if you sat in that car with us, we often talk about tourism and ways to get people in this county to spend money. And we have come up with a number of ridiculous ideas for various festivals. But we will hit on a winner soon, and that's what I want to encourage people to do. I want them to offer their opinion, to offer their input, not to be afraid to do that. So that's what it's all about, folks.
And also, Mark Vandecastle has stepped up from the Tourism Commission and has started going to those ITBEC meetings with us. And I think he was very impressed with the people he met there. And so I'm very grateful to him for, attending as well.
And he'll be here next month to give you some good news. Okay?
Thanks again for the guide, Mary. I think it's awesome. Yeah. And also, I would like you to remember that when it's 30 below or snowing like crazy, the Sheriff's Department is always out there. They don't get a day off. They're out there taking care of us, and the Highway Department is out plowing the roads. So.
And EMS.
And EMS is out there as well. So thank you to all of you.
Anna,
Yes. You sure can.
sports show is the first week in March. We have somebody scheduled for for the first day, which is on a Wednesday. This year it's only going to be from noon till 9, and we're still looking for anybody that wants to come and sit with us. Carol's going to take off the whole week. She's having somebody else do play the organ for a couple church services, and we're going to farm out our cat, and so it's costing us a few bucks, but that way I know I'll have somebody there to when I have to visit the little boys' room and do whatever. But anybody from the county that wants to come and sit with us, and the nice thing about at least 2 people is if for some reason you get down a little bit with all the people coming, you can leave and the other one can take over. Otherwise, you paint that smile on your face at noon and you keep it on till 9 o'clock at night. So don't everybody jump up at once. But
We're all
glad to
checking our
sign you up.
calendars. Okay, thank you, Everett. Next, we are going to address discussion of possible motion action item on County Government Day and rescheduling the April board meeting. Sure.
Good evening. Hope you
Good
guys are all
evening.
doing well. Just wanted to give you a little synopsis of our first County Government Day open house, or at least in this format. Some time ago, at Human Services, we wanted to imitate our good friends at Public Health and have an open house. But we figured, well, I don't know how many people will come to a Human Services open house. So I brought it to Mr. Civic, who talked about in other jurisdictions that they have an open house for kids, and brought it to our department head meeting. And I understand that we've done certain things like this before that Heather and Megan and Ruth have been involved with. So our dates for this particular year's County Government Day open houses, and hopefully they'll go well, and this will be something that goes on afterwards. But on April 5th, we're going to have about 90 students from both Tri-County and Wild Rose, and those will be sophomores or juniors, depending on what year. I believe it will be sophomores for Tri-County and juniors for Wild Rose. And then April 22nd will be for our Watoma juniors. And you can see this is just a very brief itinerary. We have a more ongoing, longer one where some of the details are involved, but I just wanted to give you a synopsis of what's going to happen. As you can see, we've had great involvement from all our departments. Every group, main group, is being presented. You can see the format. The kids will arrive at 8:45. We're going to divide them into these 7 groups. Ms. Claudia has agreed to do the welcome for the youth. And then the idea is that there'll be shifts. So it'll be a very busy, active day, half-hour shifts where each department, each group gets to talk about their services and what they do and teach the kids about government, county government specifically. We're going to have some questions that they have to be able to fill out by the end. Ruth got some nice, cute bags for them to be able to take their goodies, their county goodies, home with them. And then the staff will escort them to the next group. We do have a commitment from our schools. Our schools have been excellent to work with on this project. They are committed to not only bringing students but also staff to help with the day. And then at 12:30, after all these groups go through to the different departments, we're going to have a pizza lunch in the demo room. And there, Mr. Civic, along with UW Extension staff and veterans, and again, Ms. Collado will do some presentations also during the lunch hour for the kids as well. So the reason, we first of all wanted to let you know that this is happening and invite you to be in participation of these activities. Our next planning meeting right now is March 5th. That might change depending on some internal things we have to figure out. But right now it's March 5th in room 109. So you're welcome to come. And if that date does change, I will let you know. But also because we thought after lunch, what would be great for the kids is to view and participate somewhat, or at least see what you all do, and give you an opportunity to say hello to the kids and introduce yourself and whatever else. Maybe they have some questions for you, maybe you have some questions for them, but or at least see and view a county board meeting. So if it's at your pleasure and if you think this is a good idea, then I believe there might be an motion or whatever scheduling you need to do for the month of April to have 2 smaller county board meetings, shorter county board meetings at 1:45 in the afternoon on those 2 dates, April 5th and April 22nd. And then the kids have to leave at 2:30 because they have to be able to get back to the school and get to their buses and get to activities. But if that is something that the board agrees with, then I believe we need to do some scheduling changes.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you very much, Dawn. I'm really looking forward to this, and I talked to Brian Freimark out at Highways, and he and I are going to try and do a work zone safety presentation. I was able to get a PowerPoint from the highway commissioner up in Marathon County, and he even agreed. He said he would come down and do the first one for us if we wanted to, if it worked with his schedule. So I'm really looking forward to this. I think it'll be a great day for the students in the area. So I would entertain a motion to reschedule the April County Board meeting and have it on April 5th and April 22nd at 1:45.
Madam Chair, I'd move to approve that motion.
All right, motion by Supervisor Weddy. Do we have a second? Second by Supervisor Eckstein. Do you have any questions or comments?
Well, I don't have a calendar in front of me. What day of the week is that?
One is
Friday and Monday.
Friday, April 22nd is a Monday.
All right, and that will take the place of our regularly scheduled county board meeting the third Tuesday. So we'll have the other two, but not that one. So we have a motion and a second. Are there any other questions?
I won't be here either day.
That doesn't work with your schedule? Okay, understand.
What do you,
Work it out, right? And then
I would only be able to.
one, okay.
will we be having the same type of meetings now, with covering the same things, reports, et cetera, at each one of those meetings?
Probably,
The plan would be to
Split it
have
up.
maybe one department do a report, or something that's coming up, and then any resolutions or ordinances that you needed to do, so there would be some actual business too, so they would see what is happening.
Perfect, thank you.
We could have like, maybe an ATV thing, so we can pack the courthouse with people, right?
It'll be full
probably
with
not. It'll be full without that, Brandon. But a good idea, nonetheless.
All right.
And you want to show.
Yeah. Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, next, we have under new business report and presentation from the county administrator's monthly report.
Well, you've heard enough from me, but just things that haven't been mentioned. A couple of Saturdays ago, myself and a number of senior county managers were at UW-Oshkosh speaking to graduate students. As I've communicated to you before, the graduate students have undertaken a study, a market-based study of our wages and benefits to give us an idea of where we stand. That's very important when it comes to recruitment and retention. Last week, maybe 10 days ago, I was in Brookfield. Hayes and Company, our insurance consultants, had a seminar on issues, workplace violence, particularly active shooters. Unfortunately, that's becoming more and more common in the United States, as you saw in Aurora, Illinois a few days ago. And yesterday, myself and a number of people from Human Services were up in Stevens Point at a conference put together by the WCA regarding the issues that counties are facing in the opioid and meth crisis. As I said in my message to you, things are not improving dramatically, but we'll continue to fight. That's all.
Very good, thank you. Next, we have consideration and possible action on the following ordinance. Ordinance number 634, an ordinance amending Chapter 6 of the Sheriff County Code.
Motion to approve the ordinance.
Motion by Supervisor Reddy, second by Supervisor Kirschner. Any questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Board suggestions for future agenda items. Okay, and our new sheriff is in Hawaii, so Zach gets a short straw. But we certainly appreciate you coming and keeping us safe. Thank you.
Move to adjourn.
Motion by Eckstein to adjourn, and second by Cap, and we are adjourned.
Hawaii getting some crazy weather right now? I thought I saw news that Hawaii was getting all sorts of crazy weather.
Heidi and
Bob, your tour that you're doing with I have to be. Send that to department heads, or I mean,
Well, I heard it was something,
personally, I would like.
yeah, it was something coming down from like the Alaskan area.
That's not bad idea.
And it was like, something, here's the snow that's coming that way. Look at that storm. Look at how big that storm is. Listen, look how big that storm is. Atlantic Ocean all the way to South Dakota. Yeah,
Right.
so nice.
Because we've
today. this must not cover Hawaii, but I heard something that there was something coming down from Alaska that was dumping all sorts of like once in a lifetime type rain on Hawaii.
I was thinking,
This radar doesn't cover
we
that.
used to, when I was in grade school here in Watoma, they had one
I mean, I might not be the only
afternoon set
one,
aside
maybe I am,
for
but.
children.
there's no prep
And they did,
Yeah.
and they did like go fish, where you
I
have
don't know
the sheet
how
up
many.
in the corner, and children.
Yeah, we're supposed to get 4 to 6 inches of snow tomorrow. Yep, 9A to 9P.
Or maybe even just close the street off right here, that belongs to us.
This is the weather bunker right there.
So maybe we could do that, and you know, warn Booster Hawk. Hopefully, well, he'll have his own
Now, we're right there where the blue dot is, so
emergency.
I'm thinking it's starting before 9 a.m.
I'm sure he'll be Sunday again, we're supposed to get some rain.
Yeah.
I don't think it's much, but
Good luck with that.